Hey, welcome back to this YouTube channel. My name is Salvador Briggman, and in today's video, we are getting into some of the pros and the cons of doing or launching a Kickstarter campaign. So if you've been wondering, is this something that I should do? I'm going to be honest with you and share with you some of the pros, cons, benefits, and drawbacks of doing a Kickstarter campaign. And we're also going to be pulling out the whiteboard and getting just a little bit more scientific with this. So make sure that you take notes. And I'm telling you, man, whether you've been working on this project for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or a couple of years, I think you're gonna come away from this video with new insights, new thoughts about this, and really have a much clearer way forward. And that's my passion, dude. That's my passion when it comes to my podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified. That's my passion when it comes to my blog, crowdcrux.com. It's the reason why I've written over 10 books and I put them out there online to share what works behind the scenes when it comes to crowdfunding, marketing, getting funding, and getting people to really join your tribe, to become a part of your community. And that's what I've been passionate about since 2012. So let's get into this and let's get to the whiteboard. All right, so let's do a little bit of a pro-con analysis when it comes to Kickstarter, okay? So Kickstarter was founded a while ago. When I actually first got into the crowdfunding industry back in 2012, Kickstarter was really seeing so much popularity because we were seeing campaigns like the potato salad raise over $50,000 just by this guy who literally wanted to make potato salad. And then we saw the emergence of other things like the Pebble Watch. We saw the Veronica Mars movie, like so many incredible campaigns. But it became very clear that there are some pros and cons going into the launch of a crowdfunding campaign. So the first one, and I think this might actually be on your mind when it comes to a pro, is that if you're going to be doing a Kickstarter campaign, you are launching into what's called a marketplace, okay? So a marketplace is similar to Amazon where there are buyers and sellers. In the case of Kickstarter, there are backers and there are super backers. There are people that are regularly supporting, backing, and funding campaigns. And by launching into a marketplace, you can take advantage of the platform algorithm. You can trend in the charts and you're more likely to see success in a much larger way. So I think the first pro is going to be the marketplace aspect. We're gonna first start with the pros and then we'll get a little bit more into the cons. So the marketplace, I would say, is one of the first pros here. The next one, I think a lot of creators that are just kind of getting started, tend to be a little bit timid and a little bit shy about sharing this online. But what I would say is that the next great thing about doing a Kickstarter campaign is that you have really what I call great marketing assets, which would be like a video / page / payment functionality. So rather than having to set up, for example, a website from scratch, rather than having to figure out payment processing, rather than having to go out there and put together all of this yourself, when you do a Kickstarter campaign, you not only benefit from the marketplace, but you also get all the functionality that goes into the actual page. They're gonna handle the payment processing. They're going to handle everything when it comes to being able to collect shipping if you choose to do it through that platform. They're gonna be able to handle the uploading of the video on your page and have everything be there so that when someone comes to your page, they're able to make a decision. And for a lot of people, that can be a major pro going into a campaign. The next big item that I'd like to cover in this chart would be an idea of the logistics of fulfillment, if you want to think of it that way. So we'll kind of condense this here into pre-order / rewards. And excuse my handwriting, it's kind of going down the page there, but this handwriting was not something I've specialized in my life. So pre-orders, when you do a Kickstarter campaign, the cool thing about a campaign is that you don't have to deliver on your perks or your rewards for a certain duration after the campaign is done. So the way that it works is that after you do a campaign, you're gonna get a lump sum of cash delivered into your bank account. And after that point in time, when you go out there and you mass produce your product or your prototype or your card game or your board game, you can then ship that out to all of those backers, and then they're going to receive their perks or their rewards. So you think of it, it's kind of like a pre-order campaign if you want to think of it that way. When I also bring this up, I would say another way to liken this is like, if you think about Amazon or traditional e-commerce, they're having people buy a product and they're expecting it to be shipped within like 1 to 2, if not maximum of like 7 business days, right? When it comes to traditional e-commerce. With Kickstarter, those rewards are being shipped in a much shorter time span. And because of that, that's why most people are seeing it more as like a pre-order campaign as opposed to e-commerce. So I would say that's another major benefit. If you don't yet have your product created, you then have the time to go out there and make your products. The next pro that I see here when it comes to doing a Kickstarter campaign has to do with creating something from nothing, which is this idea of brand building, okay? So brand building is something that most creators have to do regardless. But if you're going to be doing a Kickstarter campaign, you're doing it simultaneously. When people back your campaign, when they see your marketing, they watch your video, they discover you in the marketplace, they pre-order your project, it builds a brand around what it is that you're doing online. And then when they actually get the fully finished product in their hands, it gives them tremendous ability to give feedback to you and experience your craftsmanship as a creator. And thus, a brand is being built as we speak, versus trying to launch a campaign the traditional way or launch a product the traditional way. You might be spending a lot more time doing that. So I'm gonna do one more here. I mean, there are more, but I think I'm gonna then get a little bit more into negatives just so we don't have too much of a biased video here. So we have brand building, pre-orders, videos, marketplaces. In addition, leave a comment down below. If you feel like I missed out on one of these, I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below, and give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying this video so far. So I would say when it comes to doing a campaign, another major benefit that I see when it comes to beginning creators and people that are just getting started is this idea of building an ongoing community. So I'm going to say here, community, but really what that's about is doing future launches, okay? So when you have a campaign that goes well, when you're able to actually rank in the charts and get people taking action and backing your project and grabbing those rewards, you can then launch another Kickstarter campaign. I've had people on my podcast that literally launch 20 Kickstarter campaigns. You can have multiple campaigns throughout a year. You can do campaigns on an annual basis. You can really do it as you like. But the cool thing is that when you do have that great page, video, pre-orders, brand which you're building, it creates this community, and everyone who follows you or anyone who backed you before gets a notification whenever you go live with that next campaign, which to me is a major benefit when it comes to Kickstarter. So I'm gonna put some of the cons here in a separate color just so we can kind of keep track of them. But I would say the cons, a lot of the ways kind of are a flip of the pros. So if you're gonna be doing a Kickstarter campaign, and we'll just say pro right here just to make this easier, and con here just to make this easier. One of the major cons or drawbacks when it comes to running a Kickstarter campaign is that in order to get access to this marketplace, you're going to have to be spending money on a fee, plus CC processing. So in order to access this community, right, on Kickstarter, in order to be able to rank in the charts, in order to have people talking about your project and getting excited about it and have people pouring in the door, you're going to have to pay a 5% fee. And that's going to be, you know, for the actual project or the platform itself when it comes to that fee, but you also got to pay payment processing as well. So you have to evaluate that, right? And think about, well, do I want to be able to launch into a marketplace? And if I do, then I have to be willing to pay a 5% fee. I could do it on my own website technically, but then I'm not going to have access to a marketplace. So do I want to be a part of this marketplace? Then I have to pay a 5% fee. The other thing when it comes to Kickstarter, which I would say is more and more becoming less of a drawback, but I still view this as a drawback in my opinion when it comes to creators. I've helped creators not only do Kickstarter campaigns, but also pre-order campaigns off of the Kickstarter website. I've also helped creators when it comes to e-commerce, right? So there are many other ways in which you can get someone to purchase a product, an invention, or to have someone actually join your tribe in that way. And one of the downsides to doing a Kickstarter campaign is just lack of customization. Lack of customization. So for example, I'm just gonna say themes, okay? Themes. So one of the things that many creators are kind of like annoyed about is the fact that if you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, unfortunately, you really gotta know your stuff. when it comes to video work, when it comes to copywriting, when it comes to graphics. If you don't know your stuff, you're gonna have a page that just looks really ugly, that doesn't look very good. And that's because the Kickstarter editor, you're really constrained by the layout and the look and the feel of what Kickstarter gives you. And that's great that they give you a video, a page, they allow you to process payments, right? And there's a certain flow. Recently, due to their new CEO, we now can also install a Facebook pixel on the actual campaign page, whereas before we could not. For a while, you couldn't also do Google Analytics and stuff like that. So there's actually been some upgrades here, but still, and there are continuing to be upgrades. I'm not gonna say that there's still continuing to be upgrades with like Spotlight feature and the page that they give you to be able to do previews is upgrading as well. But there's still a lot of a lack of customization. And because of that, that's a huge drawback, because if you want full customization ability over your brand, and let's just say you're bringing a tribe maybe to this, it's gonna be definitely a drawback for you. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description. The next drawback, or I'd say minus, right, when it comes to doing a campaign, the next con that I really want to mention is also tied to logistics and order fulfillment. So you can't have it all, right? You can't always have your cake and be able to eat it too, right, as they say. So pre-orders and rewards, the big drawback with this is the fact that number one, you have to do logistics of fulfillment. So you have to be able to fulfill, I'm gonna say fulfill, your rewards. The other thing is you gotta do surveys to gather information. The other thing I would say as well is that sometimes there are mistakes. And this is just natural. Like we should definitely admit that. Sometimes there are mistakes. So a couple of things I mean by that. The first one would be, right, the logistics of delivering your products and perks to your end customers. When a traditional e-commerce store, that's gonna be very quickly, you probably already have your supply chain figured out, you already have your fulfillment figured out. With Kickstarter, you're kind of figuring that all out on the go. So you're figuring out where to ship your products after they're manufactured, how to do quality control throughout the manufacturing experience. Maybe there are production delays. I've had that happen with some of my students and clients throughout the years where they have to notify their backers. So there's a little bit more uncertainty. And because of that, you have to be communicative and transparent with the people who have backed your Kickstarter campaign. In addition, surveys are another thing that for many creators can kind of give a little bit of a headache because they don't know always how to organize things like spreadsheets when you get all the survey data of all the contact information, names, and backers when it comes to your backer list. And there are tools as well out there to help you with that, but I would say surveys is another one. And when we're talking about mistakes, this is something where, again, you're supporting the process of innovation. And sometimes there are mistakes that occur throughout that process, and you gotta be willing to communicate and be transparent. So this is a little bit more for some established companies that might need to think about the logistics very carefully if they don't wanna have to make a press release or something like that saying we need to correct a mistake that we made. The next pro here is brand building. Now, brand building is something that to me is like one of the coolest aspects of marketing. And I love storytelling, I love brand building, and I put a lot of work into building my own brand over the years to really try to help and educate crowdfunders, to put out valuable, free education just like this. I also have a podcast, Crowdfunding Demystified. I have a blog. I have a free course as well, sharing with you step-by-step how to get funding on Kickstarter. This course is probably one of the best out there, I'd say, in the industry, specifically for beginners and people that don't know how to get traffic, attention, people supporting it, how to do the video correctly, how to do the campaign page, how to select great rewards. And if you want to get access to this course, I'll include a link down below at the link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. That link will take you there. You can join my free course at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. Just enter your name and email and you will start getting some lessons from me. Brand building. So with brand building, the major drawback to doing a Kickstarter campaign is that your brand is really tied to the outcome of that campaign, but also your search engine marketing is really heavily influenced around that project. So what I mean by that is that when you're doing brand building, you're also attaching yourself to the brand of Kickstarter. Plus, there's less control. So I don't know if you can read that, but less control, and you're attaching yourself to the brand of Kickstarter. Why is that a negative thing? Well, sometimes that's incredible, right? Because Kickstarter is a very trusted brand among some people, but among other people see Kickstarter and they think skepticism. They think sometimes there might be a scam. So sometimes you have to overcome a little bit of that branding. And depending on what your goals are as well in the future, you might end up getting tons and tons of traffic and links and like an avalanche of attention on your Kickstarter campaign, but you're like, had I done that on my website, I maybe would have been able to rank higher in the charts with my specific website that I'm trying to build. So if you're further enough along where you really know a lot about digital marketing and you know a lot about how to, generate traffic, and you don't need a marketplace, you don't need to do pre-orders, you understand all the setting up the website, you can do that very quickly, right? You might decide I'd rather build my own brand. I don't need access to a marketplace, and instead I'm not going to, make use of Kickstarter's brand. And in that way, it's more of a focused, right, marketing campaign. The final one, and I do think that this is kind of a double-edged sword, is this idea of community building. So with community building, a community can be a blessing. A community can be something where it uplifts you from like no one knowing about you to then all of a sudden being a rock star in the crowdfunding industry and a rock star when it comes to developing new products and new brands. But it can also be a double-edged sword. I've had creators that don't do customer service. So we'll say customer service / messages, comments, communication, etc. So when they don't do this, what ends up happening is that their community tends to turn on them. And all of a sudden, those people that were so supportive are like, why is this person not doing any updates? Why are they not leaving any replies to the questions that we have as comments? So a negative is that if you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, one major con is the fact that you gotta be willing to be communicative with your community. You gotta be willing to talk with them, man. You gotta be willing to answer their questions, reply to their messages, and leave comments in your crowdfunding campaign page. That can be a little bit scary, but at the same time, that's a relationship, right, that you're building with your community. And if you do that, then you can have future launches which are successful. And if you don't do that, if you try to launch another campaign, they might be like, well, this guy, he did fail and he actually did a horrible job as well with communicating that failure. Versus I've had other clients who do fail or they have different production delays and stuff like that. But if they're communicative and transparent about it, they can launch another campaign successfully and they can do even more than their first campaign when it comes to that goal. There are so many pros and cons when it comes to doing a Kickstarter campaign launch. I have a great book out there called the Kickstarter Launch Formula, where you can actually get your hands on a paperback version of this book, which discusses all the various pros and cons. It's really the paint by numbers formula for launching a campaign. So I'll try to link that up down below. And also I think I have an article as well that goes even more in depth into some of these pros and cons. I'll try to link that up down below. But if you're at this point in time and you're at all thinking like, I don't know, like it sounds interesting, but at the same time, I feel like there are some clear drawbacks to doing a project. I hear you. I think that there are many people out there who Kickstarter is a great fit for. Other times, someone will call me up with a coaching call and they're like, Sal, I'm just not really sure. And by the end of that conversation, we maybe push them to a different platform, which they decide to launch on successfully, or another method of crowdfunding, or bypass the method of crowdfunding altogether and decide to do something else, for example, like a pre-order campaign. So there are many ways of getting from where you are to where you want to go. And I'm here to guide you, to help you, to hold your hand, to make this not only fun, interesting, and educational, but also to make it much easier when it comes to your life as a business owner, inventor, creator, creative thinker, the next Leonardo da Vinci, right? Whatever it is. So go down below. If this is something that you're struggling with, go down below and click book a one-on-one coaching call with Sal. You can go to the link at crowdcrux.com/coaching and you can book an individual intensive one-on-one coaching call with me where you can really go through the A to Z of what you need to do in order to get this idea out there, whether you're in the idea stage, concept stage, product and prototype stage, you already have something that you're ready to launch in the next couple of weeks or months, and you really want to go into like the brass tacks of what you got to do to build a strong foundation, to get people to show up, to build traffic to your campaign, to get people taking action, to back it, to trend in the charts, go down below, book an individual one-on-one coaching call. I'm telling you, it's going to be the best investment that you've ever made when it comes to leading up to the launch of a campaign. Or if you're live right now and you're just not really happy with those results, you're sad, it's okay, dude. I'm telling you, there are so many ways to blow past that. And even if that means a relaunch, having really the correct focus and attention going into a relaunch is going to mean the world. And like I said, it's one of the best investments which you can make. So go down below, book an individual one-on-one coaching call. My name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did. Leave any comments. If I missed them out in this video, leave them down below. Come subscribe if you want more content like this. If every single week you want me to kick you into high gear, get you going out after your goals, to have that fire in the belly as you're hungrily, going after that dream and turning your passion into profit, hit that subscribe button. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I'll see you next time.